Yep.
Hello and welcome to episode 217 of the FReality podcast. Times are changing for VR. Some dusty dinosaurs are dying off in ditches, and yet we can hear that steady thump of progress. Raunchy rabbits are busy down in their burrows, ready to spring life into VR in the year of the rabbit. Here's today's FReality rundown. Who went and got electrocuted in their quest? Unreal Tournament fans and VR chat furries are about to clash in a deadly bloodbath. Sly Studio Shell Games stabbed the world in the back and made off with $1 million. PSVR2's launch lineup is hot and ain't no squeaky desert bus. Microsoft came knocking, much like Death himself, but stayed for a cuppa. And then Netflix and kill. Finally, a member of the Baja Men that was let loose on California, Jose's here to ask who let the dogs out and tell us what special chew toys we're getting in the form of VR game releases. We'd love to hear what you've been playing in chat, and if you have any recommendations too, let us know. So now let's roll out the carpet for the fine members of FReality crew. All right, first up, he must have 8 sticky tentacles and an imaginary wife. He controls time with his mind and moonlights at night. This podcast simply won't run unless this guy's running the show. He's our wizard behind the mask, so let's ask him to pull out another miracle from his big bag of tricks. Hey, Rowdy, I've got something for you to fix.
Oh, God, again? Like
every podcast, every single podcast.
Something is about to... No. We're good. I think although my PC is kind of sounding like a vacuum cleaner right now, other than that, we're good, I think. I hope.
Hope so. How's your week been? Other than busy?
Yeah,
it's been busy. Has it been busy?
It's been really busy. I guess it's that after New Year's, everyone is back on the grind, and all the stuff that didn't get done in the last week of the year, just all of a sudden needs to be done now because we need to get our numbers up or whatever. So yeah, it's been quite eventful. Let's call it that way. But yeah, I've had a good week. Didn't have any time to be playing any games at all, but I've been keeping tabs on whatever's going on. Looking forward to the show as well.
Can't wait. You reminded me of Jose's narcoleptic laptop from the other day, and also, of course, Adam also has. Now, look, I'm giving you previews to our other members, but hey, we've got equipment that just wants to go offline for some reason.
Who's it going to be this week?
Who's it going to be this week? I don't know. Speaking of that, let's move over to the queen of the screen that glints and is green. This gal turns TikTok into the scariest of scenes. She's questionable content for weeks on end. Ladies and gents, she's building an empire in ByteDance's database. I'll say congratulations on 1 million likes. Must be screams and frights too. For if you're seeking something odd, man, Adam's got you sorted. So Adam, how's learning to drive going? I've seen some of your latest talks over there.
Does it sound positive?
Not entirely. Entertaining, yes, but scary when you're in VR, also yes. I've been playing a lot of the games that were flat screen to VR simulator type games, and because I really do like simulators, because I feel like you can kind of make your own out of it. In some of them you can I've been doing Barn Finders VR and Deep Simulator.
What is Barn Finder VR? I saw that. What is it?
So you know how people sometimes they go to old public storage units and they sell whatever in it. It's kind of like that, except barns. I don't know if doing that for barns is a real thing. Probably not, but it's an entertaining game to say the least. I've been surprisingly enjoying it. I have a very low bar when I start off these games, so maybe it's very easy to, I don't know, for me to be pleased when the bar is set so low to begin with. But even though they're buggy as hell. Like control wise, it's not great, but I do like being able to like some of the customization features, being able to actually see that in VR. And I don't know, Barn Finders is just silly, so I can also appreciate silly.
Absolutely. I've never even heard of Barn Finders. Is this a flat game that came to VR, or is this just another kind of VR game that a lot of people haven't heard about?
No, it was a flat game. I hadn't heard of it either, to be honest, before this, but it was a flat game that came to VR. It's one of those where it's got I forget when it was converted or when even the flat screen one came out, but it's one of those where it's like teleport only. It does have smooth turn, but I can appreciate it for its extreme redneck humor. It's interesting. In the last barn, I found a taxidermy frog on a unicycle, and so you can sell that. And there's also a taxidermy deer with a bikini swimsuit on it. So you never know what you're gonna find and what people are gonna buy. So
sounds like your kind of thing, though. Yeah.
It surprisingly is. So I'm like, you know what? That was only the demo. I was like, all right, fine. I've had enough laughs out of it. Maybe I'll actually buy the thing.
Well, I have to say, I love those conversions from, as you said, from flat to VR. I think that, you can actually get some really good experiences that way. So keep us on your journey, Adam. Let us know what we should and shouldn't be playing in that space.
Will do.
It's also a great place for devs to get their name known, in the environment and all that. I'm still waiting for, I think it's Power Wash Simulator VR to come at some point. I'd love to clean a patio. I just would. I would. I'm waiting for that one day.
Come clean mine.
All right. He says that more than is appropriate. Okay. This next lad's got the gift of the gab. Like a Browning M2, he's not exactly a gentleman. He's a dreamer and a man who looks good in a suit, headset cradled on his noodle, and coveting in equal measures arcade cabinets and glue. That's Jose, the VR tech. Say hi to him too.
Yo.
I'm just these stupid rhymes. Say
I
Jose, how you doing?
Are you into limericks?
I saw that you were getting into.
Is this your
I thought you were
Irish
gonna
out
break
coming
into
out?
like a rap battle or something. I started getting into it. I was like, all right, here we go.
He's Irish. It must be a limerick, right? Like something like that.
Not even start. You're gonna get me on a bad route. How you been, Jose?
I'm good,
how's
man.
things?
I'm pretty excited. Relaxed. Really didn't do anything really technical this week. I kind of laid back. Traveled, explored California a little bit. Hit up LA. I kind of get it now. I know now why all the techies love LA. Pretty much everywhere I went, I was having a conversation with either like a developer, a game designer, or somebody I think it was called, I was hanging out in this area called Silicon Beach, where I guess all the tech people hang out, which was really dope. So
I imagine this being like a beach where there's like no one there and just like three dudes with a laptop, like just like
it really was.
away.
I'm not even lying to you. It really is that. It truly is. It's you can kind of. I've never felt because over the years you can kind of tell like how being nerdy and being technical is kind of like the new cool, unlike how it used to be back then. So back in the day you could kind of figure out the nerds, and so it's gotten harder over the but you go to this beach and you can spot them all out. Who the nerds are, and it's really cool. But I've had a good time. I have been playing video games. Unfortunately, not VR because I was traveling. But I've been playing a lot of Hi-Fi Rush. I don't know if you guys heard of it. Just came out. It's super dope.
Game or what is it?
It just came out. It's a Bethesda game. It's a 3D platformer. But I guess the premise of the game is that you're this kid who has an injured arm, and he goes to this like robotics manufacturing plant to essentially fix his arm. But in exchange of you getting fixed by this robotic Apple-esque company, you gotta do a job. So they're fixing his arm in order to make him pretty much a janitor. So they're giving him an arm so he can start cleaning and mopping. He wants to be a rock star, so he has like this rock star mentality. He's like, I'm going to perform. He has an iPod. some hijinks happen where his iPod gets infused to the robotic arm to his heart, and so it's a rhythm-based world because of the beat. So they license some music. The game opens up with Nine Inch Nails, so it's very colorful. Reminds me a lot of like Jet Set Radio meets.
Nice.
Wow.
It's super
name of
rad.
this?
It's called Hi-Fi Rush. I think it's like
Hi-Fi Rush.
It's about 4 days old. It's so good. It's free on well, not free, right? But if you got Game Pass for Xbox, it's available there. It's on Steam, I think. But I highly recommend. It's so good, and it's really rare for me to play 2D games lately, or 3D or pancake games that people call them now.
As a Nails fan, I don't remember the last video game that Trent and his crew actually were part of. So that's pretty neat. I remember Quake 2 back in the day, although I think that was Sonic Fury more than Nails. Nails was Quake 1, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But man, that sounds good. And you mentioned about 3 different like stitched segues to different components of our podcast today. So a very good fit.
Well done.
You know, well, that's great.
I was always going for the record.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, enjoy California while you're there for sure. That's a fun place to be. It's all sun. And when you said Silicon Valley, I have to be honest, I imagined Silicon Beach or Silicon, not Silicon Beach.
Silicon.
And I was like,
Plastic surgery.
There you go.
Yeah,
2 different beaches now in my head.
That's Miami. That's Miami.
Is that what it's like?
Yeah.
I've yet to Miami. So, okay, on my list. So, were there any call outs from chat before I move on to my highlight? Now that we've had some nice highlights there from Adam, Rowdy, and Jose. So
we've got, I haven't heard of this one. I don't even know if I'm going to pronounce it right, but Hyperbolica. Someone tried that and they got properly VR sick, unfortunately. Stride, Mother Gunship, Walkabout. Oh yeah, they've got their Atlantis thing. Sorry if that was a spoiler. Risk of Rain 2, Primal Hunt. That one's I've been also playing that one this week. Beat Saber with new Pro controllers. Fun. Gran Turismo 7, Tales from the Galaxy's Edge, and Last Call. And Paradise Decay's been playing a ton of flat screens, a ton of flat games in VR with mods.
Right, that sounds more like PD, to be honest.
Yeah, I saw that there was also someone was playing Horizon Zero Dawn, but then with the Luke Ross mod.
Done that. That is really worth doing. We'll save that for the PlayStation part. We'll come back to that. But it's a good mod. I thought I wouldn't like it, but like the GTA 5 mod, it's a good mod. It's worth doing. You just need a bit of grunt in your PC. Like I have a 2080 Super. Try it with something beefy, like that beefy or beefier. 30 series or 40 series. Very good. Okay, so I'll give you my highlight as usual. It's zombies. Well, to some extent, anyway. One piece of that was continuing in Saints and Sinners Chapter 2. And don't worry, Adam, no spoilers. I won't be saying anything. But then it was like getting collectibles in Horizon Zero Dawn. I'm trying to platinum that game. I've decided I'm going to go for what I call like a beautiful VR sandwich when it comes to Horizon. So I've got the first game that I've been playing through. I'm going to try and 100% that. And then I plan PSVR2 for late February, right? Get into Call of the Mountain, which I expect to be relatively short and maybe replayable. And then after that, Forbidden West, which will be that's my plan. That's my Horizon sandwich because I've been enjoying that game loads.
So that is India Horizon for you.
Yes. Oh God, this is going to become just an all dads.
We need to bring Natey back with the sound effects.
No, absolutely not. Keep that board away from that man's hands. But no, the pick I wanted to highlight, not necessarily a highlight, but I'll explain. It was kind of a highlight for me. Was Roberta Williams and Colossal Cave was my pick for this podcast, just because it's such a different offering. I wanted to talk about it just a little bit, to kind of mention what it's all about and also give some caveats to people who are thinking maybe jumping into that one. So Colossal Cave launched on a number of platforms. It's a really, really old game that was reimagined by this developer, Roberta Williams and her husband, that really takes like an age-old click and point, drag and drop style adventure game and brings it into kind of modern day era. I've got several VR bones to pick because when I saw it was landing on Switch and consoles and PC and stuff all at the same time, and they said and VR, I was like, okay, how's this gonna go? And I expected to hate it, and I didn't hate it. I am a big fan of old like LucasArts style games. Really enjoyed those. Day of the Tentacle, for example, the old Indiana Jones games,
or like
that kind of stuff.
The Lost Journey,
Monkey Island.
Monkey Island.
I haven't played the Last Journey.
Wait, is it the Lost Journey or the Long Journey? No, it's the Long Journey. I think it's the Long Journey.
The Long Journey is a pretty recent game compared to those ones, but yeah, those are
Oh man, I love that game.
Classic games, right?
Gray Matter is another one.
Yeah, there's something about that genre, and I know that genre always wants to die for some reason. Like it'll get 5 years of love, and then it just evaporates, and then people try it again. And so this, I was like, okay, come on, are they gonna make it? Is it going to work well? It's going to be terrible. I'll tell you, a few things were not good. I'll start with the not good stuff so we can kind of end on a high note. But the locomotion was really weird. I'll call it Titanic locomotion in that you had two different options. One was where you had to like hold grip and kind of the grip run thing that you mentioned is there in Horizon, which was very, very odd. You'd look in a direction, you'd like run with your controllers, but it wasn't very smooth, and there was snap turn with that, and so nauseated by that. And I was like, okay. And that was the preferred VR locomotion option of Roberta Williams and tagged as such in the options menu. And I was like, okay, sorry, Roberta, no. And then there was the more standard move where you could do smooth locomotion and all that. The problem was they have it bound in a really weird way. It doesn't take the direction of your controller. It doesn't take the direction of your head. So you can't just, for example, move in a direction smoothly and kind of continue following your head. What happens is when you pick a direction, you hold forward on the analog stick, that is now your compass north. And so if you're walking down a path or something, trying to kind of undulate around a path and meander, you end up holding left to go forward and stuff like that. Really weird. It's bizarre. Confusing. So their locomotion system is broken. It's navigatable, but it's broken. The graphics are like they're Quest level graphics, I'd say. So for a Quest user, you'd be like, this is passable, right? They're fine. It's kind of quaint in a way because a lot of the stuff felt very hand carved. Water didn't look real. That type of stuff, right, was in there. But gameplay wise, I want to give them a couple of pluses. First off, you got a kind of like an inventory system, kind of like in Myst games and stuff like that, where you're able to go through different objects. But one of the things I wanted to touch on was their map system was awesome. Really, really cool. Hand-drawn maps that as you explore from area to area, they kind of draw themselves, so to speak. Now you can either, if you're really, really old school, you could do that on pen and paper, right? But I recommend sticking with their recommendation, which is turn this thing on. And then you pop up a map, and the problem is in VR, it decides where it's going to stick, and it's going to stick maybe to your right flank or something, and then it'll always be over there, and it's not where you're looking. So you'll like press the map button, you're like, where the heck is it? And you got to find, it's over here. So you have to do a 270-degree turn to see it. But the maps themselves, and as you're kind of going down through the dungeons in the cave, were really cool, and the feeling of exploration was neat. Where the game suffers is like most of this type of genre, is that the combination of items, and I remember a very specific puzzle from Monkey Island where you needed to take I know what you're going to say. Sharp implement and a block of tofu and carve a mask to appease a volcano god, which I remember spending, I think it was 3 months, like bashing my head against the wall trying to beat that puzzle as a kid.
It's notorious for that because I remember the same one with like where you had to like get a map of a guy's back. Like who had a tattoo there, but he was like sunbathing, so you had to like make sure that he turned around first, and then he had to put like oil on him so he would like burn faster, and then you could like peel the skin off, and you had the map. Then I was like, how am I ever going to be able to figure this out? Like,
I remember that one because I figured it out, but it is that kind of if you're not in the head of the developer, and you're not thinking down the same route, like you'll almost never find your way, right? Yeah. And this has one of those where I just got lucky. If I had a certain item in my inventory, I wouldn't have gotten past a certain spot because at the beginning in the intro text, they say, this particular thing doesn't like this other thing. And if you didn't pay attention to that, you probably would be hitting that barrier again and again and then just give up on the game. So it's a kind of a classic adventure game. You won't be very impressed with the graphics, but it was kind of nice. The only big flaw, I think, in the game for Colossal Cave was for VR, the ticket price. I think the game is worth $15 and they're charging $40 for that. It's really out of whack, I think, in terms of...
Is there a story driving it forward then?
Kind of. It's a bit like, so it's a bit lightweight. It's more exploration than story.
Because I think
there
for
are
these
elements
kind of titles that is very
with.
important. Like if you look at, for example, like Curse of Monkey Island, the Longest Journey, like any of those kind of games, they have like a very solid story that kind of makes you want to push forward and go through the struggles for solving these puzzles. Or like, because I don't think that, I mean, maybe there are people, but certainly not me. I'm not playing this game in order to, exactly solve the puzzles. Like I want to know what happens next, and I'll go through the puzzles in order to get to that next bit. It's a bit of a reward system, but only having the puzzles for me doesn't really do much.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't get stuck. So I thought that the kind of IQ level or the Mensa level, on the meter was like right. It was about the right level. So from that, like there were times when I was like stuck, and then within 5 or 10 minutes, I found my way through, but there were certain puzzles that I just think are going to hang people up, and they're going to be like, that's it, I'm done. Right. And they're just going to leave. So kind of cool. If you're interested in that kind of game, I would say wait until it's less than $20. Otherwise you're probably going to feel a little bit ripped off. Really cool to see it. I'm glad it was out there. And that was my quick highlight of the week. So let's go ahead and get into some news now. And there's been such a shift I've been seeing as we go into 2023 in the VR spectrum. Like hype trains are running. Things are both good and bad, and that's why we're calling this like the Yin Yang podcast, because it very much is that. I feel like it's the circle of destruction and creation all in 1 year as we start the new year off. So let's give you a jolt of action to start off, and let's start off with a bit of shocking, somewhat not safe for work story, I think, from Reddit. That sounds good. So a boy of undisclosed name and age, whom I shall refer to as Bling Boy, had an electric experience with his Quest 2. While playing connected to the wall charger that comes with the Quest 2, he got an electric shock, a pretty bad one that sent him to the emergency room. Quoting the Reddit post where this is featured, the original poster, I think is his dad or mom, said he sustained burns to his hands from ripping off the necklace that he had around his neck that the spark clung to. To which the original poster remarked as well, "Scariest night of our lives." So Reddit being Reddit, seeing these pictures, went on to postulate how this could have happened. And just for our audio listeners, what the people on the video podcast are seeing is there are marks around the circumference of his neck where you would hang a big gold chain, for example.
There's the thing here, the Reddit thread has been deleted. So
is it gone?
So there's no more pictures that I would be able to show. So audio and video listeners are getting the same experience here.
Hang on.
Maybe that's for the best.
Hang on. I'm gonna pull a very quick trick because I still have it up on one screen, and hopefully, Rowdy, this will work for you. I will ping that over to you. Maybe you can get that up.
All right.
Okay, here. Actually, let me ping it to you directly, and then we'll continue with our little story.
I got it.
So in terms of this kid, right? He looks, maybe he's like 8, 9 years old, something like that. But he was obviously wearing some kind of metal chain around his neck. And Reddit was postulating to say that the metal chain that the boy was wearing had somehow shorted with the extension cable that he was using to tethering himself to the wall, causing electricity to flow through the chain, and obviously then grounding down through his feet or whatever. Bling Boy here sustained electric shock burns around his neck that appear to be 2nd or 3rd degree burns, causing a fair amount of skin to come away. I actually used to work as a porter in a burn ward, and these do not look comfortable. He'll have those and probably scars around his neck, if not for several years, maybe for life. It was also mentioned that the white adapter had turned almost entirely black from the current. And however this happened, I'll just say I'm glad it's not another entry for the VR Darwin Awards. So yeah, there you go.
Right?
Kid survived. Yeah, he's obviously not I wouldn't say fine. I mean, those marks on his neck are pretty nasty, and you could see in some of the other pictures that I didn't send to Rowdy, some of the arcing that happened, into the body, and also he has scrawl marks on his neck as well from trying to tear the chain off. I mean, one of the things that people might not realize when you're getting electrocuted or you're handling electric shock, one of the things you can't often do is let go. And so for example, if you're in one of those daisy chains of holding with other people and a bunch of people in a queue are getting electric shock, you have to get someone to like knock you out of the chain to break the connection, because it will try to hold and bind you. And that's the same thing he was having with the necklace. And so he was trying to tear it off of his neck and throw it away. And he did end up doing that, but obviously suffered burns as a result. So there you go. That's another kind of crazy VR story, but wanted to surface it simply because,
it's a bummer.
That's what we hear.
That it's associated with VR, because to be honest with you, what it sounds like, first of all, if you're connecting something directly to your outlet, you're going to experience problems. That there's something called a surge, whether it be through or from. Always protect your outlets, especially if you're using connected to the headset directly. I would have been able to be like, okay, this is a VR related injury if the headset itself caused any shock, but it was 100% on the necklace itself.
It's circumstantial.
It's very circumstantial. It's also what adapter were they using? Were they using like an Amazon knockoff that's like a
there's got to be something here.
Cable. They're probably using a 20-watt cable that can only handle that. It's very interesting. I noticed that's something that I talked to a lot of colleagues in the VR industry behind the scenes. There's a huge issue with aftermarket cables, especially on Amazon. Be careful with the wall charge extension cables. A cable that's rated for 200 watts or more and it's only $20, that's suspicious. Definitely look at power ratings. Do your research. Don't put your expensive headset on a $20 cable. You wouldn't put a $20 insurance plan on your Mercedes, right?
Well, wait.
Think about that stuff.
So is it the actual power cord? It can't be the power cord from the Quest.
It had to be.
No, it can't be. It can't be.
I mean,
I can tell you what.
It must be an extension cord or something.
It had to be.
So the thought was that there was. I'll trace it from the wall back. So you have the wall adapter that's connected to the wall, about a 3-meter, I think, cable from that point, and some kind of an extension lead that was added in there. And the thought was that the chain had somehow gotten connected into that connection. So shorting the connection between essentially the headset, which was drawing power, from the extension lead. And that's why there was an arc that appeared and then ended up short.
Because I don't think it's possible that it's the cable that goes into the Quest to cause this, just because you have an adapter in front of that reduce the voltage, right? You are not getting 110 or 120 volts through a Quest
definitely
cable.
not. It's only pulling.
So it needs to be the cord in between the plug and the actual the extension where you plug the Quest in. It needs to be that big cable then, because it can't be the Quest itself.
And I see this, not the burn situation, but I've seen probably 10 or 15 different shots of people with Quest 2s who've, to Jose's warning, have used a cheap cable and ended up burning out their headset through the USB-C port. I've seen so many melted on headset ports.
But that I can believe.
Power delivery.
But this, you can't get electrocuted by that cable.
Yeah, this is crazy.
There's no way. This has to be. This has to be from the extension cord cable, where actually you have the adapter is not there. Going on. So he must have had the extension cord. I don't know,
the other side, Rowdy, right? Why didn't the circuit breaker trip? Right, this kind of current flowing to ground would typically cause your MCB to trip, right? Very quickly as well, very quickly.
But there's no way that this is caused by the headset. This must have been caused, or even the cable from the headset. There's no way that this can cause this.
This isn't on meta, right? That's not the point. But there is a trend, and this is why I wanted to feature it. There is a trend of unsafe practices or people just not being careful around electricity. And so it's important to realize what can happen if you're not careful. And obviously this is the first time I've seen Bling get into the middle of that and someone trapped a cable and managed to shock themselves.
Maybe Adam should try it out.
Yeah, you've got
Let's go, guys.
just to reconstruct it for our audience, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Adam, would you mind?
Shottiest cables I can find, and then we'll see what happens.
But yeah, so that was fun. So let's move on to the next piece. But speaking about like Gibbs in this, a new world in VR chat called Instagib Tournament has been launched for playtesting. This features an Unreal Tournament style level with floaty Instagib mechanics and even double jump and dodge added to player tastes. Fans of the series will instantly recognize the Unreal style level and gameplay, perhaps asking the question, how many more classic games will come alive again through VR chat worlds? There's been quite a few, like Jet Set Radio. You mentioned that just a moment ago, Jose. There's an immaculate conversion of Jet Set that was done as well in VR chat. So I recommend people check that out. But if people are Quake or Unreal nuts like I was back in my teenage years, this is something that I welcome. It's yet another.
That is so cool. I put so many hours into Unreal Tournament 2004. So when I think I saw this on your Twitter initially, I didn't even realize it was in VR chat. I just thought it was like a mod or something someone made. Yeah, but I was like, wow, this brings back a lot of memories.
And it makes it so easy to jump in, right? That's the nice thing about VR chat worlds is it's like you're just in there and you can bring a bunch of friends in and no one has to install or configure mods or anything like that. So like that's the nice thing. I know this isn't,
Did you have the
Unreal Tournament brand, but
killing spree.
I was about to ask that.
I don't know. Obviously, if they do, they're stepping on toes. But
the BFG must look
I'd
so
recommend
cool in VR.
A BFG is a Quake item, but yes,
that's a Quake item. What's the one for Unreal? Was it Unreal? No, Unreal was the rocket launchers, right? The Redeemer. Yes,
that was amazing. Where I just remember facing worlds and like you get the Redeemer, you shoot it off, and people got their sniper rifles going, and then the thing blows up. You just see this like nuke going off. Oh my god!
Yeah, I remember this. Like, I have a funny story about that actually, because I mean I was way late with everything, and when I finally got like I think Unreal Tournament was on the Xbox or something, but I had like no internet back then, like so. I had like nothing that I could play with. I saw this game and it looked like awesome. Remember, I had no internet, couldn't look up what it was about, so I bought it. And I was so disappointed in it because I was expecting to have like a story and like have like something I could play. But the only thing I could do is like play this game against bots because again, I had no internet connection. So I had such a horrible time with that. I still played it a lot because I had no other games, but like, because I spent all my Christmas money on that.
There's kind of a story. Man. Like you go against the different factions, but they're just Unreal Tournament style stories.
So if we're talking about the original Unreal Tournament, so not 2003 or 2004, you had a bot-driven single player that led to, if you beat the final guy, and I forget his name, he's like a robot almost, you'd unlock that player character as like the crowning glory to then, if you're playing in multiplayer matches and you're playing as a robot, then it proves that you beat the single player. But it was bot matches. What you really wanted was Unreal. So Unreal, which came before Unreal Tournament or slightly around the same time, that had a really fantastic campaign, kind of like Quake games, right? That had a proper campaign. And then there was another game. What was the Unreal game that came after Unreal Tournament? It had an amazing like black hole gun that you got just for the last level. It was infuriating.
Are you talking about like Tribes?
No, it was an Unreal game. I'm forgetting the name of it though.
There was Unreal Gold.
I think it was
Unreal Gold.
Maybe they can help me out. But there was an Unreal game that came out, not the original Unreal, which looks like Quake 1 level graphics, but one that came out a couple years later, maybe a year or two before Unreal Tournament 2003, brought in ragdoll models, and I can't remember having more fun with dead bodies than Unreal Tournament 2003. And then, of course, they brought vehicular manslaughter in 2004. Anyway, I could go on, but we could do a whole podcast on that. Clearly fan of it. What I'm hearing, though, is that we need to get a match going between the four of us. Is what I'm hearing.
Yes!
Oh, dude. Yes. We can mod it. Oh, dude, yes. That's all I remember from high school, just modding Unreal Tournament and, like, everybody's, like, choosing, like, their favorite character. That was VR chat before VR chat. I remember like having my own custom Homer Simpson skin for my characters. Good stuff.
I don't know if you can answer this, but do you know if you can use your own avatars in like your VR chat avatar with this map?
I'm going to assume that's a yes, because VR chat worlds generally you can bring all your insane avatars along with you.
So much chaos.
We should definitely. I'm so down for a meetup in VR chat.
Let's do it. Let's blast each other. Let's see who's got the best skills in I don't know. I was great on mouse and keyboard. I have no idea what I'm like.
You'd have to feel it. Yeah, it depends on how it feels too, because it might be, I don't know. I'd have to try it.
Might rip your stomach out, is what you're saying? It might.
Well,
it might.
I don't know, but there's something. It took me a long time after playing Unreal Tournament in other games to not just spam spacebar all the time. Like that game made me just jump all the time for everything for no reason. And so when it came to more realistic games like Call of Duty, like, oh, you can't do that. It's stupid.
You feel like someone took a nail gun to your feet and you're just stuck in the floor. You know, you're like, I want a bunny hop. I want a bunny hop. Exactly the same with Quake. If you've ever watched competitive Quake, it's insane the fluidity of just jumping, of just bunny hopping around the entire level. So there you go. That's a bit of a splash from the past. And hey, while we're talking kind of indie stuff, let's go ahead and talk about indie success, because I am a firm believer that indie successes are the best. Core gameplay-driven social experiences. So we got news that Among Us sold 1 million units. I mean, it's only been out for like 2 months, and they've sold 1 million units already, saying that, anyone who thought that Among Us maybe wouldn't sell so well because maybe that's, just not as hot as it used to be. In fact, they did a pretty good job. Sorry, Among Us VR, I should qualify that. So that's Shell Games. Great win for them. I'm very happy because Shell Games is one of those original studios that continues to bring us great titles, things like I Expect You to Die. And I just want to continue to allow them to invest in great VR. I think they're one of the best. So that's Among Us. A great little stab into the world's back with that one. And then talking about even more money, Gorilla Tag has reported $26 million in revenue for playing tag.
I expected more. But that's
it's only started, man. Jose, I think they're the modern day Beat Saber. From the moment I saw them have the store in game and all the cosmetics and things, like it was just it was obvious that they were going to absolutely kill it, because it gives you that playground experience of being. I mean, I still remember being there. Like we ran a thing, everyone was running around just tagging each other, and it's great social. It's going to become like that almost Fortnite scene for kids, right? In particular, and
it already is. It already is.
Oh, it is.
I have nephews, and they talk to me all the time how there's like after school like arguments about Gorilla Tag, and and he's talking to me about this stuff, and he's 12. And this reminds me of like Pokemon back in the day, like Pokemon Blue or Pokemon Red, where you would just be just talking smack in line in class about, oh, I got the best roster. And, you can only settle it after school, and that's what's happening with Gorilla Tag, where kids are just talking smack at each other about how good they can play this game.
I wonder if you have to tell me what these arguments are. What's a Gorilla Tag argument?
How good they are. The game is scalable, right? So it's a bunch of feats of, I guess, virtual athleticism. Like there's like a bunch of if you actually play the game, the game is all about exploration, even though you're in a tag. So you can see the pro players trying to do crazy feats and stunts in the map. Like they're jumping they're wall running, they're jumping from one side and getting into the slides, and they end up in another part of the map. So it's very bizarre what they're doing with that game, and that's what they're doing. They're engaging kids through allowing kids to show off. That's what.
And then of course they look like they want to look, right? And also because you're able to earn the currency in game and then get the cool, whatever
cosmetics
thing that you put, the cosmetics, the badge, the hat, whatever. It really does allow people to kind of show off. And so they've done a fantastic job. But it got me thinking, like, especially with some of the news we're going to talk a little bit later about, where really is the money in VR and AR and all this?
Kids.
I still think the money's in the kids.
Yeah.
I think the money's in the kids. And it's funny because they're kind of like our savior, right? Stop saying that they can't be like Bling Boy and enjoy VR. Let's get I really believe this. I think we should have a kids sized headset, a
100%.
VR headset, right sized for them, the easy interface, like the Nintendo Switch of a VR headset for kids. It can have content that's appropriate for kids. These kinds of games can feature. I mean, Rec Room should go and fund and make their own headset at this stage.
agree.
You know what I mean? Like, I mean, let's get that headset out there. I really think that.
The funny part about that is that, unfortunately, when you think about it, is that kids will get those headsets that you're describing, and they will hack them and mod them and remove all restrictions available. And it's very ironic and interesting now that we're talking about this. Is that a lot of people in the VR industry, especially us, we tend to be so jaded that we hate we call them the screechers or the annoying kids but they're the ones really keeping this industry alive. A lot of people don't realize is that we tend to follow the money because obviously we know that money is what funds industries, but the kids are at the end of the day that they decide where the money is going to go. In fact, all the way down to content creation. Do you think a 14-year-old cares about ad revenue portion splits? No, they don't care about that. I'll tell you a really funny anecdote that connects with this. My nephew, one is 12, the other one is 6, and they were getting into an argument. And the 6-year-old, as an insult, told the 12-year-old kid, "Oh, that's why you watch YouTube Shorts." And this 12-year-old kid was like one of the biggest insults that you could ever tell a 12-year-old because, and I'm like here listening to this, and I had to ask. I was like, I'm going to show my age, but why is that an insult? And he goes, because everybody knows that YouTube Shorts is nothing but recycled TikToks, which is an insult, which is so many layers. He just called him a boomer. You're stuck in the past. And that's the equivalent of us talking about like, oh, Gorilla Tag is going to fail. It's like, no, if there's more kids than adults, it's going to succeed. And it's going to succeed more than anything that you can bet on. Always bet on the youth. They know what's cool. Like they were us at one point, right? We somehow forget that we were the ones leading the industry, and we get to the position now that we talk about it. They are. Oh, I'm with you.
Yeah,
I'm with you. Burn them all.
Two sides. Like on one side, I don't necessarily, want to play with them or have them around, but I can appreciate, because like with any gaming industry, it starts off originally with, there's not a lot of tech, so it's maybe adults who are buying in, but then as it becomes more mainstream, more consumer friendly, then once the kids start getting in, that's what really starts to boost a platform into becoming, really mainstream. So I can appreciate kids. I just don't want to be around them. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and just to touch on, I saw Chris Richardson post in chat about the kind of the potential hazard for eyesight and things like that with kids with growing eyes. There are some things that need to be overcome to reach the spot where we as a society and scientifically, we've engineered a headset that's right for kids, right? But I'm just saying it's easy for me to wave a magic wand and say, that the headset could exist tomorrow. Yeah. But I think some of specifically how the eye component of headsets works, lenses, variable focal length, for example, this could composite into a sandwich, which may be appropriate for that market. And I think that market will,
I agree with you,
will be the wind in our sails going forward, to your point there, Jose.
No, for sure. And and to that point is we have to remember is that most of the arguments that have come out, the research that has come out for VR for kids is not really about the lenses. It's actually about the tracking and movement and how it could have a proportional damage and coordination because they're actually adapting and learning motor skills in a virtual space compared to the physical in the real world. It has never been about visuals.
There is a skeletal muscular side to it though as well. Like a headset is heavy. Its center of gravity is not right for a kid's skeleton, right? You put a headset on a kid, they're straight away kind of tilting their head down. They're putting strain on their neck, which is bad enough. Kids these days with tablets and phones and stuff who are like, looking down at that.
It's important to note that there's no concluding evidence that virtual reality is bad for children, nor that it's not. Of course, like we don't know. Yeah. There's not enough data, I think, in order to support either of those claims. But yeah, I mean, we should be careful always. Adults should be careful as well, especially with like age. Your skeletal muscles also decrease.
Don't tell me I can't VR, Rowdy. All right, I'm not accepting that.
I've seen you struggling in them games. I don't know.
Oh man!
If it's not due to skeletal muscles, what is it due to then?
Just don't put a Mensa test in front of me, all right? It would be here forever. Right. So that's that. We've got VR for kids headset at some point. Be good in the future. With that, let's flip over to the kind of, again, a little bit of the hype train here, which I always worry about touching on these things on podcasts because you're only inflating a message that's already just hot air to some extent, but let's go there. So Marcus Kane, who you might remember, who assisted, sadly it's Bradley, in rendering some models for Quest Pro and other things in the past that have been pretty on the money, has now popped out 2 new renders, one for Quest 3 and one for Apple Reality. So let's talk Quest 3 to start off with. This Quest 3 render, or as I like to say, the ugliest headset child VR has ever known. It's got the same ear-slicing cloth headband as Quest 2. It's got an integrated into the arm USB-C port. And again, I'm just thinking about all those melted USB jacks that I've seen. It's got a 3.5mm jack on the opposite side. So now those are kind of composited into the headband. Pancake lenses, that's of no surprise to anybody. Smaller form factor for the actual headset itself. And the thing that I just can't stand is the Bane-like front end with these 3 black vertical oblong panes for the pass-through cameras, which again in this configuration is oftentimes 1 RGB and 2 2+2 black and whites in there. So it's going to have, better panels, comfort, better screen so we get better darks and stuff, lighter weight, travel better, all that kind of stuff. Does look like a winning model aside from the actual look of this thing. It looks ugly in my opinion. But that's Quest 3. We know it's coming this year, or is said to be coming this year. Meta said that themselves. Again, the price range somewhere between, I think, $300 and $500. So it could be a good replacement for your Quest 2 if yours is aging, like mine certainly is, or if you were recently, thrown out with the bathwater and you're still on a Quest 1. So there you go. That's Quest 3. What are your thoughts, guys, on this new render?
I don't know. I kind of wish that those 3 oblong things would light up. I think that would be cool.
Oh
yeah.
They would
light up. Are the cameras all 3 of them, or are they just to differentiate Quest 2 from Quest 3? For
I think it's to get better
purposes?
depth.
Down the middle, you have the central RGB camera, and you have the tracking cameras on the 2 sides, and then at the back. Yeah. So just like, the Quest Pro works, right? So you've got most headsets, and Jose talked about this, I think, on the last podcast. The reference design looks almost exactly like this. They've just decided to keep I'll call them translucent or transparent panes, which is allowing the cameras to see out, black. I've actually seen it. Someone mocked up, in Photoshop, a white version of this, and it looks 10 times better. But Rowdy's idea of having them bling up, addresses something that I'm missing. I miss the original Rift, the original, DK2 that I had, which would, on Logitech webcams, glow this lovely purple sheen. Then we got PSVR1, which had blue lights in the dark, and then you had the Move controller, so that all lit up. Where's our bling and lights? We don't have bling and lights on headsets anymore. So,
right.
Rowdy, maybe you just solve that.
They need a tech designer. You can tell that Meta and all these companies are kind of focusing right now on actually just streamlining a product and not really the visuals. I'm really excited for.
It's important to know that
Apple
these are just renders,
Mock-ups.
right? This is renders by someone who's assuming things, right? And we don't know how accurate this stuff is.
There's some liberties taken here from the patents, essentially. Yeah,
and also to be fair though, I think we kind of also historically figured out how Meta works when it comes to the supply chain. So there's a really high chance that this is exactly what it's going to look like, maybe with some minor differences. So let's not try to hope too far. I think Bradley has earned usually his bets to be trusted when it comes to that kind of stuff. But
of course,
I think what we're starting to see now is what we saw originally with original phones is that they all look a certain specific way, and now we just need a really good rise of a tech designer. I forgot the guy who designed the not the iPhone after Steve Jobs, but he made a name of himself.
Johnny Ive? Not Johnny Ive.
Johnny Ive, yes.
Johnny Ive.
Meta needs a Johnny Ive for Meta, somebody who is focusing only on the actual visuals of the headset. The 3 orbs on the front, although conceptually may have looked cool in renders, maybe visually it doesn't look good. They're probably not even printing these out like these guys are doing as fans. I feel like that's what's happening. Maybe they're like designing it strictly on AutoCAD and not thinking how it's going to look, and nobody's like printing them out before production until they see it on a video from somebody else who printed it out in plastic, and they're like, oh, that doesn't. Maybe we should revisit that, So
the thing I don't understand though, Jose, and for the rest of you as well, like I feel like these are the early engineering years where we're in that awkward phase where braces on the teeth, pimples all over, these headsets generally don't look great. Like you don't go outside with them and go, hey, I can walk down the street like with a leather jacket and I look fine. That's just not the case. So I don't see why they haven't embraced that to some extent and gone a bit wild with their designs. I haven't really seen that yet. We've seen some kind of cool modular stuff. I like the new Elite XR from Vive. They're going a little bit steampunky with that. But largely they all look reference design to me, and
the 3 looks similar to the 2.
I really think so.
It just has the 3.
Yeah, I think they look too much like Apple, and they want to make like a luxury item. Well, it's not that. It's not something like like that. You don't pop that out when you're walking on the street.
And it's also the reality.
This is where Pimax actually does well. Yeah. Like Pimax's form factor, their headset, that hammerhead shark design like display. Yeah. I like that. It looks cool. As long as it's not getting in the way of you swinging your arms and it's kind of tidy. They've actually got a look and a feel, and it feels like that's
LED
Pimax.
On the top, right? That they have like that.
Yeah,
LED
that's
bar.
so sick.
Like,
and you just made the point. You just nailed the point, and that's the reason they have a huge issue with supply chain, and they cannot manufacture them. The reason all these headsets look the same is because they figured out how to mass produce this form factor really well. They're using they're relying on cell phone manufacturers. So that's there's Pimax has so many cool ideas, but when you scale them up, when you have to quality assure it, when you have to get hundreds and thousands of these headsets in people's locations, you're not going to be able to.
Yeah, for manufacturing reasons. And that makes sense. So let's talk about something that maybe is a little bit easier on the eyes. Talking to the enemy at the gates, which is Apple. So here's another mock-up from same fella, and this one's featuring a MagSafe connector to a USB-C rechargeable battery pack. So you've got the headset and the battery pack being separate. The headset features a slim ski mask-like interface with a transparent or possibly translucent front end. The edges are simple, like a glasses frame with a cutout for your ears. They don't look particularly comfortable in this design, and they also have a headband to again take the weight, I suppose, off of your ears, but still fit snugly. This look, however, I think might be rejected as unworthy on the street. It does look like you're walking around with snow goggles on. But if the front display is clear and pass-through and you can see through the eyes of the wearer, maybe they've got a point. So this has a kind of a cool look to it. What do you guys think of this new potential Apple
It looks like the interface without the everything else. Like you just took the interface part from the Quest and you're just like, here we go. This is good. You know what I mean?
That's a really good example. I like it actually, but I agree. It does look like the guts of a headset.
Is this I mean, is this real? Like, is this supposed to be coming? Because I don't know. I'm not convinced.
Yeah,
I don't see.
What worries me is the MagSafe.
Is that the only thing that worries you?
It's like, yeah, because when you think about it, it's like, can MagSafe deliver the data transfer speeds that we are going to see in a headset? And if so, can you reliably have any kind of motion in VR? Are there based on that, you can't really do much motion, you can't run with it. They're not really looking at fitness then.
But you don't think that like having transparent
that's
screens and no lenses, that is something that Apple is at right now? That's what they're working with? To come out with a device with transparent screens, no lenses, at least as far as I can tell, right?
As far as you can see, right? Yeah, it looks. The thing is, we saw at CES something that is kind of similar to this with the electronically converted opaque level, right?
Yeah.
To switch from pass through to that. So when I see this headset, it's a very clean render, and I think the actual product wouldn't be so clear out the front end, right? It would be something else, more like a translucent level, which maybe you could switch up. But again, I'm asking myself the question. They've answered in the mock-up like where the battery would be. Again, maybe at your hip or something like that.
I'm gonna be careful how I mention
like that.
this.
Go on.
Because this is like very high industry stuff, and I don't want to mention the people. But I remember a few years ago, I got a demo it was a hardware demo of a diopter that looks a lot like the crown for an Apple Watch, and it was pretty much dimming in the world in and out visually. And they were talking about it was using electric charges to pretty much dim the screens, which is what we saw a lot at CES. Yeah. But this company was doing this about 3 to 4 years ago, and that company got acquired by Apple.
but that's the other way around, right? Because that's looking outwards. Because the way that I see this is looking inwards.
No, it's both. It's absolutely both. It's because you're dimming the actual lens itself. Yeah. So the screen goes just straight, turns into sunglasses essentially.
And so that form factor isn't too far off. The trouble that I have is, I again, do you see someone walking down the street in San Francisco or something?
Yes.
Wearing these?
Yes. I've been to LA,
bro, and that becoming a norm.
The norm is now where like ski masks are actually a thing. That's actually in urban streetwear. That is an accessory. Yeah, man.
So what kind of tag are you hiding in that ski mask?
Oh, a few. But ski mask, I forgot. There's a few rappers that really put it on. They do like the ski masks. So it is actually an accessory. So, and especially after going to LA, I can tell you unequivocally, you will see these in the street. If they're public available, you will see them. Like I saw people wearing like swimsuits with like overall like just winter coats, and that's fashion here in LA. So you will see.
Or a homeless person.
Or a homeless person. You really don't know. You really don't know. But it's
because either worth $1 million or nothing.
That's what I wear on a Sunday when I stay at home, you know.
Oh, jeez. All right. So anyway,
dude.
This is the fluff spot. Anyone else got any comments? Otherwise, I'm taking us to PSVR2 then. All right.
I'm not too convinced with this. I'll see it when I see it.
Yeah. Apple's been, it's just, we keep hearing about Apple, for like how many years now, Rowdy? Like, how many years have we talked about them?
Like, since the start of the podcast.
When it finally happens, that's fine. But I think, like, Rowdy, I'm jaded now. I'm like, when it actually gets announced at a keynote, then I'll be interested. Yeah. But and even then, I don't know if I will be, because it's Apple ecosystem, probably not gamer centric. Will I even want it? Is the question. And then will I be able to afford it? All those questions. So let's move on to something that we know is coming, is relatively affordable, and has plenty of hype behind it. So as you might have been seeing on the web in general, PSVR2 is garnering a lot of attention, and I can say that that's for good reason as well. Shortly after our last podcast, Sony came out with news of an additional 12 games coming to PSVR2, making the launch month window of 30-plus titles. And so there is a lot of solid content coming our way. In particular, if you are brand new to VR, or even if you've just been stewing in PSVR 1's square pixel gumbo, you should be very happy, because there's just a lot of value here, and many, many hours to satisfy your spring and summer coming up. So here's a rundown of games coming in the launch window that were only just announced in this kind of second exposure of games. Kayak VR, Pavlov, Puzzling Places, Song in the Smoke, Synth Riders, Thumper, NFL Pro Era, What the Bat, Res Infinite, Tetris Effect Connected, Creed, that's the boxing one, The Last Clockwinder, and of course we also had, as we mentioned on the last podcast, Gran Turismo 7 as the 13th in that package. So I wanted to touch on a couple of these. There are some that are also, brand new that have been mentioned that we haven't seen in VR before. So let's start off with, for example, Before your eyes. Now, this is a really interesting kind of piece. This is coming to VR, PSVR exclusive, PSVR2 exclusive, and it's blink controlled. It's basically about an interactive afterlife where every time you blink, some piece of the game advances, and you're controlling the story with your own eyes. It's got a really unique kind of art style. It reminds me of the days of Quill and the original Oculus studios that originated a lot of kind of like art pieces that were experiential in nature. And so for somebody looking for something a little bit different, I think that
I think
before your eyes is an
stuff
interesting.
Like this is what VR needs to do more. It needs to explore the technology instead of like just going back to like, I mean, yes, we need the big guys to jump on and create big titles, but like stuff that is different, that uses the technology that we have at hand, that being like with your hands, being it with your eyes, whatever it is, like that it uses that more. I really think that VR should do that more.
That's what excites me about eye tracking is I'm really curious to see what creative ways developers are going to integrate that in their games. And then, like you said, other kinds of technologies, whatever's going to come to. But like really just even like Switchback, for example, seeing that tweet on like every time you blink, more mannequins appear. I'm like, holy, like it's scary, but it's very creative. And I can appreciate that. Like I just really I cannot wait to see different ways that developers are going to use eye tracking to, enhance
horror games are gonna get so much worse.
And
horror games are gonna get
they're already so bad now. I can't play them now already. Like I just can't imagine what it will be with this kind of stuff.
Like the thing is, if you take the whole stack, eye tracking, we've already got it in, for example, in Saints and Sinners, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a moment, right? They detect when you're talking, which is great for a streamer, by the way, because, then the zombies are just flooding me all the time. But you have this option that if they hear you, it attracts the zombies. I mean, the eye contact brings so many cool horror elements that are possible. It also, unfortunately, is such an easy shortcut for people who before relied on jump scares to just be like, I'm going to terrify him or her every time they open their eyes, and so I worry that designers who aren't as mature are going to abuse that and numb that when I'd prefer it be left for something a little bit better designed. Like use that information, but please don't release a VR horror game where every time I open my eyes or blink, I
mean, they can do it. I just won't play it.
Something jumps in my face.
They can make 15 of those. I just won't play any of them.
Yeah. But some of us like horror.
Like horror games now, where it's like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen when I open this door or this drawer. Like it becomes so overused that it's predictable. But then there are those shining beacons of horror games where you're like, wow, you can appreciate them because they did something different with it. And not just the same.
You can also play around with the eye tracking, right? Now, it's not just blinking. You can also like have something render away from where you're staring at, which will be even scarier when you think about it. You're staring right and you look to your left and something pops out and it just starts fading away from your eyes. Like that, and also like the haptics, to kind of make you look a certain way to mess with you. Oh, I can't wait.
That's the thing, the signaling, and when they can use it in a way that not if they're constructing candy, but they're making a dessert, like to make the environment, to make you feel a certain way, to control your emotions, right? The haptics on the face. That's a great point, Jose, because those things all blended together could make you feel this great sense of unease, right? Now that's just horror, right? That's just horror. I think there's so much that can be done with this. I'm just really excited. So let's go into some more of these titles because some of them look amazing, right? Speaking of amazing looking games, and Adam, you talked about this one before, Kayak, right? Kayak VR, the breathtaking visuals of just the water. I think that's going to be the demo choice for a lot of people once they've done it. Like, what are you going to show grandma or grandpa or, your cousin? Throw them in kayak for 5 minutes? They're going to be so...
I don't know. Do you have like a good horror VR, like with the eye stuff already out there?
From demoing VR, you have two types. Some people like want to take it easy, and some people are like, hit me with all you've got, baby. I want the intense experience. But normally that second group tends to regret it when it's their first VR experience. They're like, all right, here you go, extreme roller coaster VR.
I guess it depends whether you're in their will or not. What kind of
You're in their will.
I will say, I did have an older gentleman that was a coworker of my husband's, and he was an exorcist, and he really wanted to play Phasmophobia.
Wait.
First.
Hold back. Go back.
He was security and an exorcist. It was like a multiple thing. Like he did exorcisms. It's
Wait, security and an exorcist?
We need details.
He was a security officer. Like he
By
worked with my
day?
husband, who's also security.
And by
But then
night?
he also did like on-call exorcisms. I don't think he had done them anymore
Wait,
at
is
that
that
point.
over
He
the
had done
phone?
exorcisms. No, he'd go to houses.
He keeps the evils from all here. He knows
Go
what
into
to
houses.
Right.
So you go into barns and he goes into houses, and that's how you guys make money? I see. I'm starting to understand. This is how Californians do it.
But
That's a
anyway,
very different way.
Yeah.
We had him play Phasmophobia because he wanted to try it, and then we did a nice. It was kind of interesting to compare, like, okay, there's different spirit types in Phasmophobia compared to things that you've seen. I mean, I don't know how much I believe in it, but I am supportive of other people's beliefs, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, I'm not.
But it was
so
interesting.
was he like actually saying like, I've seen this before? Because that's what I want to know.
Talked about like. There were some similar comparisons on like he would give me stories of like, how he went in an attic and like some of the apparitions he would see looked close to like when the ghost was hunting. So there were like certain comparisons that he could make, or even specific spirit types. Or it was kind of interesting. Like not that I'm saying that I believe in it, but it was fun to be able to talk to him. And he kind of, though, equated Phasmophobia to being like a Ouija board, where if you shouldn't really be doing those things because you're kind of inviting the negative spirits to come to you, which you don't really
100%. And the thing is, if you have an exorcist or someone like that, they're naturally a gravity well for that type of thing. So, I mean, again, whether you believe in it or you don't, that's like a kind of side of
love this.
I just don't muck with that part of the universe. That's like saying you're doing a deal with the devil, or taking some goat's blood and writing a contract. Just things not to do on the weekend. You know what I mean? Oh my God!
Sorry to sidetrack us, but that was
fun.
Does he arrest the ghosts like as a security guard? Like, does he like talk to them like hey, yeah, freeze! Stop it, demon!
Freeze! And the entire place like turns into ice. No, not like that.
You'll never catch me.
Jesus.
Interesting.
We've confused Rezal. He said, "I think I stepped into the wrong podcast."
Sorry.
We've definitely gone the wrong. So that was trying to go towards kayak. So hopefully we've seen that trailer at this point. The next one up on the list, which I think is an interesting one, is of course Gran Turismo. I have a really weird relationship with racing games. I was catching up with the crew a little bit before the podcast to say, like, I've got like 6 years of like hosting multiplayer VR events, and seeing Gran Turismo 7 now get, VR-fied, sans the split screen. It's got such nice details that it just might draw me back in. But like, I don't know, man. I know a lot of people are really excited to race with others, and thank God it's not Drive Club 2, because Drive Club was horrible at the start of PSVR's launch. So this launch, I get it that people initially thought, it looks a little bit weak or frail. But now, with all these additional titles added, I feel that it's like the complete opposite. This feels like a killer lineup now. Like, I mean, and there's more to come. Sony have said there's actually even more coming. So let me keep going, because there's more stuff coming. We already know Horizon and stuff like that. The Last Clockwinder, of course, Rowdy's Game of the Year from last year as well. That's coming. But how these titles are also, integrating the sense controller, the haptics, the eye tracking is really neat. So I'll touch on some of those details. So take No Man's Sky, for example. The PSVR1 game it ran smooth because of Sony's wonderful quality assurance, right? And their standards being very high. I used to hear all kinds of things from VR devs about, I could pass the Oculus Store requirements, I could pass Steam, but Sony's beating me up. And I don't expect that has changed with Japanese standards now. So No Man's Sky looking the part, now that you've got the raw horsepower needed to make the game, plus all the DLCs in there that they've launched that add just so much more to the game. You could just get lost in that game for a couple of months of your life. You know what I mean? So that's one. But then what about things like heavy hitters like Pavlov, Rowdy? I mean, you and Pavlov practically were wed at one point. It's an FPS shooter indie darling, isn't it? And
for sure,
it's bringing back stuff that they shipped in that game that I don't think that we've even touched on. The World War II aspects of the game, which included a 3 crew member tank that you drive, each with separate roles. They're also bringing Trouble in Terrorist Town. So like that's a full enriched FPS experience that's coming. It doesn't have crossplay, just to be clear, with Pavlov's Shack, the kind of cut down, stripped down Quest version. But this is the PCVR equivalent being ported to PSVR2. And it will have crossplay with PC. So tell me that game's not going to do great on a console with console gamers. I think that's going to absolutely kill. And then you're getting like a whole run of free upgrades, things like Pistol Whip and a big favorite of mine, Puzzling Places. So if you're more into, I've had a hard day, I don't want to play Pavlov for 2 hours, but I want to kind of chill out. You've got the awesome, sonic ambience of Puzzling Places, a game where you're putting together 3D geometry of scanned environments, churches and beaches and buildings, oh my, and you're getting, eye control for puzzle selection and all that in these games. And that, again, this is getting a free upgrade. They already had the game on PSVR 1. Great. You've got it now on PSVR 2 in your launch library. There is just so much value coming our way with these titles. And I know it would break the bank to buy all of them. But I can tell you that there are going to be some gamers who get into this and I think go down that road. Before I keep going, because there's another half of them that I want to talk some basic details about. What are you guys looking forward to? PSVR 2 wise, like what's the thing that's got you excited?
Well, first off, I'm a little bit on the different end of the spectrum. I feel like a lot of these titles are things that we've already seen. And it's kind of like, and I get it, of course, because they're the most popular titles that we've seen on platforms such as Quest that are now being ported to PSVR. But I don't know if this is enough for example, convincing people with a Quest to also get a PSVR. I'm sure that it can convince people who have a PlayStation and say like, okay, yes, I've seen these games being played on a Quest, but as in terms of competition, I am not convinced that this will convince people to trade their Quest for a PSVR. And looking at the
especially
lineup,
with Quest 3 on the horizon, right?
Yes,
so that's
exactly. So I mean, there's a few of the games, of course, like Horizon Zero Dawn, like that are being exclusive to the PlayStation VR. But I don't see enough of that stuff in order for me to really tie into this specific ecosystem. So I'm a little bit, I don't know. I was expecting more from the lineup, to be honest.
The other guys?
For me, I will have to say, like, what I worry about the most is, I agree with you, Rowdy, because I want to say, man, there's nothing competitive from like a title perspective, but from a multiplayer perspective, content creation perspective, I think that's I think what's going to set PlayStation VR 2 ahead visually from the race is that I think we're going to see way more VR content being made on a PSVR 2, unlike the Quest, and also way more VR communities being born because of PSVR 2 compared to the Quest. If you look at the social aspect of Oculus or Quest or however people want to call it, it's terrible. I get notifications all the time that says, you have accepted this friend request. I was like, I don't remember hitting accept. What do you mean? Like when? So there's a lot of, there's weird tools that they don't really care about how you're interacting with people. Also multiplayer experiences, like the processing capabilities of the Quest 2 at the moment don't really allow for really good multiplayer. It's always asynchronous multiplayer experiences, nothing that could really deliver PC VR multiplayer experiences, where the PSVR 2 is going to deliver. I think that's going to be the differentiator. I don't really think it's titles.
But what I mean is, like, if you look at, for example, the Xbox battle versus the PlayStation battle has been going on, like that console war. That's always been very much driven by the content that they produce on specific platforms. People buy an Xbox because they want to play Gears of War,
Halo,
or they want to play Halo, whatever.
That's superficial, because when you think about it, I agree with you. But when you look at it, I revisit those thoughts. It was really about the culture and community that you're defending.
I don't know.
Halo created a culture community. It wasn't really about the game. It was a fun game, but when you look at it, it was the people that were Xbox players. You had all your friends on Xbox, and you were trying to convince all the PlayStation guys to come over, and vice versa. Where I don't think that's
Halo.
an issue with VR. But yeah, to play Halo, but it's the community.
Well, I don't, because if, for example, PlayStation would have released Halo on the same platform, then you wouldn't have cared then that they were on PlayStation and they were on Xbox. You would have just like, you know, if you could do cross-console playing, then it doesn't matter what they are. But I think a lot of people bought specific consoles because of specific series that they're interested in. I know, for example, I had a friend of mine who was he said, I will never buy a PlayStation because PlayStation doesn't do shooters well. And back in the day, that was the case. You know, Xbox was very shooter-oriented. You had Halo, Gears of War, you have all of these kind of things. And PlayStation had more like,
and that's what I mean.
Japanese
it's the connectivity.
RPG, like, you know, different kind of simulators. It was a very different kind of style of like the way of games that they're releasing. So
community tools. That's what I'm saying. You're describing community tools. Xbox Live was the layer that did all of that. It's what made the Xbox worth defending. And that's what I'm saying is that currently the Oculus platform isn't focusing on community tools.
But I mean, they existed before. They existed before there was even mention of like anything social, right? You know, they didn't have internet. I mean, I had an Xbox without internet, so you know, like that.
Can we take this back a second? Because I'm curious, just to poll you all about when you swapped lines, when you were, I don't know, a Nintendo person going to Sony or vice versa, right? When you made a console switch, in the same way a couple years ago, Rowdy, that, you know, I went away from Apple and I became an Android user. When you made that change, what caused you to change?
Community.
To me, it's games usually. Games, but then a combination of like seeing that Xbox was more for like shootery Call of Duty type people, and I wasn't that kind of a person. So maybe a mix of both, but I think primarily game driven. At least
can you name something specific? I'm just kind of curious to kind of go back.
Horizon.
Like what's the game that brought you over?
Horizon initially on the PlayStation because it didn't come out for the computer. For the computer, that sounds like an old person saying that. For the PC.
I bet you watch YouTube Shorts, don't you?
I do watch YouTube Shorts. I'm so sorry, but yeah, although I don't know, I do want to say it's mostly title based because I did love Gears of War, so I can't say like I'm totally PlayStation, but I do love sort of the UI and the branding more of PlayStation a little bit more than Xbox, which is kind of grungy to me. Although I guess that like Xbox makes me think of Mountain Dew and Cheetos versus PlayStation is kind of a little bit more. I don't know. I
can see that.
Advertising works, people.
I think for me it's the same, and also of course like PlayStation jumped on the VR wagon. So like, you know, like that was for me another thing in order for me to say like, you know, I want to play VR games, and Xbox has not been committing to VR in any way or form. So it was kind of like an easy switch for me.
No,
I would say games and tech, I think for me are the ones that really push me over.
For me, I'm a hardware guy. It's so weird just thinking back because I remember like N64, it was the controller that brought me over. I didn't even know GoldenEye or Zelda or all those games were going to be on there. It was the controller that brought me over to that. With the original, with PlayStation 4, PS4 Pro, it was just a headset. I wouldn't have bought it without that. The Wii was the same thing, just like on a tech demo. I was like, that hardware looks so cool. It's something we can't do. The Kinect was the exact same. I went and played Dance Central at a friend's house. It was the Kinect camera. I saw that and I was like, damn, that is such a cool like engineering feat. I want to be part of that. I never played console games. I only played with the Kinect. And so I'm weird that way, but like
I think that's for me the same. It was
strange.
Games and tech.
Same reason I'm buying PSVR2. It's just the headset and what it can do. Is like, I don't know. It's almost like a haven or like a heaven that I want to go and get through the doors of. It doesn't matter what angels are in there, but I want to get in, you know, and not miss that. So It's strange. But Jose, you're saying for you, it's really the people, it's the community side?
I would say it's the people. It's always been the community. As much as I love PlayStation over Xbox, I always noticed that the Xbox, the reason Xbox always built a community or built an audience for itself was that they went onto the tools. The Xbox Live was the reason Sony invested in networking solutions. In fact, they're suffering for it. You know, a lot of people don't realize is that Sony runs at the mercy of Microsoft and Xbox Live right now. Like their servers are Microsoft servers. They run on Azure. So they're winning for that reason.
They always make that joke that Microsoft can, like, if Microsoft would not release like a single tool anymore or a single product, they would still make much more than maybe all of the companies together, just because they hold so many patents everywhere. Like every time a product is released, they have a Microsoft patent.
That's insane. But that's what I mean is that I feel like right now, like it's very hard for me to see Oculus and see their software, even if they're offering the same content. It's very hard for me to see Oculus as a real gaming company still, because their tools, their social tools, their content creation, like I want to see achievements, I want to see awards, I want to see the tribalism that you see in, you know, PlayStation versus Xbox players. I want to see the, you know, oh, here comes the Oculus heads, you know what I mean? Like I want to see that. But in order for us to see that, there has to be community tools, like actual community tools, not an app that just is selling me stuff. You know what I mean?
It's really funny because I was never an achievement hunter until like I got to connect and started unlocking things, and you get your gamer tag and your gamer score, and you get glued to, like, I don't know, building that up, and you get proud of it. And it's the same thing I find on PlayStation's ecosystem, like earning those trophies. Like, I would love to say I don't care, but there's a completionist in me that fucking cares a lot, you know?
Well,
and I'm
Steam.
like,
nobody really cares about Steam's. Well, I mean, maybe some people do care about Steam's achievements, but I don't think so. Not like Xbox level, you know?
No, I've always been after the fact with that. Like, wife and I like 100%ed Left 4 Dead 1 and 2, and we were very happy about that. We did that. But yeah, you don't show it off in the same way. You don't like feel pride about it. And definitely
and the pride is connected to you though, because they make you feel the pride. Like on the PlayStation 5 or on the 4, when you get an achievement, it's associated with a screenshot. You can see either a video clip or an image of when you earned that achievement. Why isn't that in VR? Kids are doing feats on Gorilla Tag. Why can't I go on my phone and say, "Oh, you did this really cool feat. Here's a video of it. Share it on TikTok."
Yeah. I mean, achievements for the last 10 years for me have gotten to be to this point where it's like, I'd love to see the end of them to some extent, right? I want it to evolve to whatever the next catch is, but something where fragments of your experience are shared socially with friends without it being an annoying spam feed, some kind of interconnecting weave, like in that quilt, so that you feel like you're doing things together, maybe something along the lines of like, where Facebook and other social platforms have said, hey, a year ago you were playing with Zim and Gorilla Tag, or something like that, right? Just something to kind of remind us to stay connected and to continue to further that. But I love that. Anyway, we're getting far away from PSVR2, so let me go through the other half of the PSVR2 launch lineup, because it's really strong. Resident Evil 8, right, got a free upgrade. So if you have the base game already, that'll be there. Res Infinite, a lot of people love the kind of, again, that classic. Now, that's not a free one to upgrade. I think it's $10 that they're charging to kind of upgrade it if you already own the original. Song in the Smoke, Rowdy and I were big fans of that before. Synth Riders, for everybody who's not getting Beat Saber on day one, because that's kind of oddly absent from the list, must be in development behind the scenes at the moment. Tetris Effect, great game, again, to connect with people as well. It's fun. One on the list that is probably near my top now, having seen this unveiling, is Thumper. Thumper is one of the best single-player PSVR experiences that I'd had. And at the resolution of PSVR2, 4K HDR, 3D spatialized audio, to feel a rhythm violence game. And again, no spoilers here, but it's got one of the best finales of the game I've probably played in the last decade or two. There are just some games you like are really difficult, but worth the feckin' journey to complete. And that's where I feel like Horizon sits for me, Adam, is It's quite challenging in certain spots, but when you get past it, God, you feel great. You really feel that like breath of fresh air, like that feeling of achievement of I did something difficult. And that's what us as gamers like. We like to strive and like get past things. And Thumper is that. So if you haven't had the chance, I'm just going to say out of everything that's in the launch lineup, right, do earmark Thumper if you're in at all to stuff that just looks great and feels great. I think they're going to do amazing things on that. And then, of course, we can't forget Adam. There's Chainsaws coming too within a month of launch on the 21st of March. We've got Chainsaws coming in Saints and Sinners Chapter 2, which the visuals of that, I mean, I just got to say, because they allow you to punch zombies in the head, I can't wait to feel what that feels like and be there in dark, deep OLED blacks. You know what I mean? That's going to be
I just want to be a zombie brawler. Like, no weapons, just
punch.
The most chaotic playthrough of
no
Walking
idea.
Dead ever.
I love that.
After a tough day, I'm going to say this now. I'm doing it on Quest. After a tough day, thumping, like just literally just hammering this like zombie face with your fists feels amazing. It is a great stress reliever. Way better than Beat Saber. Way better. So there you go. But that's that. We also, I got to say, in Rowdy's camp, and maybe a little bit Jose's here, we had a tweet from Carmack on the whole PSVR2 thing. And so he has also, if I forgot to write it down for myself. So Rowdy, you're going to have to help me out and read it out as you throw it on screen there. What did Carmack have to say about PSVR2?
All right, let me bring it out here.
Yeah.
Moments.
Because he had an interesting little opinion there. And while he's bringing that up, I'm just going to mention a couple of the other free upgrades. So After the Fall is getting a free upgrade. That's going to be such a great game. Gran Turismo 7, No Man's Sky, Pistol Whip, which has had lots of DLC added for free, Puzzling Places, RE8, so that's Resident Evil Village, Song in the Smoke, Synth Riders, and Saints. There you go.
All right.
Carmack.
Yeah.
So
So
what did
he
Carmack
said
have to say?
that I don't expect PSVR 2 to be very successful at $600, but technically, with a directly connected OLED display and decent ray tracing performance, it is an opportunity to implement just-in-time ray tracing for a couple milliseconds, 6 degrees of freedom, motion to photons latency, which I would really, next tweet, like to see. That would be a VR compositor replacement, and the sensor display GPU timings would be really tight. So a third-party developer could not do it, but it would be a worthy task for Sony.
Yeah, there you go. I love seeing Carmack kind of chip in. Definitely the price is high on the unit, especially now when people are feeling the pinch of the way the economy's been going. But it's always good to see John challenge another engineer. And that's exactly what this is. It's, you can do this. Here's your task. And so in some Monday morning meeting somewhere, hopefully a huddle off in Japan, they'll take this task on and bring it
now
to
that I think about it,
PSVR2.
we haven't seen a ray tracing demo game yet on PSVR 2, right?
Not in VR.
Yeah, and now that got me thinking, a lot of the original PSVR titles haven't been shown off yet. And I was actually thinking about it, like, has Astrobot been announced yet? Like, that's
there's no Astro.
Their sweet, that's their golden child of the PSVR. So they know. So maybe that's what they're doing. Maybe that will probably come with like the insane visuals. Like they do need their knack for PSVR. So maybe that's what's coming. Maybe they'll re-release the old library with like insane visuals.
I think Astro needs a follow-up title. The other thing that really excites me with that bulletin is they did mention very clearly that there will be more news prior to launch. So there are still some surprises up the sleeve. And because we haven't had like a press conference or something to that extent, aside from the little drips and drabs we've had since kind of November and December, I don't know. Are we expecting any other heavy hitters? This is a great lineup already. I mean, I'm at this point now where you guys might have this. Do you ever get like yourself to the point where you're like, you're overhyped for something? I'm like trying to keep the lid on Pandora's box of excitement and just like, I don't know. I feel like I'm going to boil over before February 22nd comes.
No,
but
I still want to see some more. I still want to see some more exclusive stuff, like something that is specific for PlayStation using full VR. I'm not, like I said before, I'm not interested too much in the hybrid stuff.
Yep.
I want to see more. I mean, I am excited about the hybrid stuff in a way that I'm curious how they're going to do it. And if it can convince hardcore VR veterans of getting into that as well.
I wanna see what they're gonna do with their technology. Like as ironic as I say, I care more about community, but I want to see what Sony can do with their cloud solutions. They got PlayStation Now. PlayStation Now is starting to become very impressive. They could easily probably do. There's a lot of companies that are doing VR streaming, so we know it's. I think Pluto Sphere is one of them, and all these other ones that can do VR streaming. Maybe Sony can do that. They have a very healthy business relationship with Valve. I would love to see them acknowledge Steam VR in some way, shape, or form. I did see like a picture that surfaced where somebody showed like Steam VR with like the icons of the PSVR2 and everybody went crazy, which goes to show that conversations or interest is happening behind the scenes.
So just to connect the dots for anybody who isn't, right? You're basically talking about, could we get PSVR2 and the Sense controllers working on PC? Could we
something, maybe some official collaboration, maybe allowing you to stream Steam VR to the PSVR2 or vice versa? I'd love to see them. I'm a big believer that that's not just technically achievable. It can be done. Sony's publishing hard on Steam lately, so why not expand their functionality and their connectivity?
I do. I mean, a lot of people are wishing for Alex to come to the headset.
That's a good way to do it. It allows them to keep the ecosystem, allows them to not port over the game, which will be very bad. If Half-Life Alyx actually hits the PSVR 2, it might hurt Valve with their next headset. But allowing people to try the game this way and then getting the crazy visuals on the Deckard, that makes a lot more sense to me.
I think it'd run. I mean, it's a very performant game. That's the nice thing about Alex. It's like anything that's been kind of a Source engine game. They run well. They really run well. You don't need a crazy machine. So I think, I want to see it. I want to see it happen. I'm like a lot of people, and I don't think we're going to see, unfortunately, PSVR 2 working on a PC. I think there's going to be blockers for that, several of them, but I wish it would.
I can't wait to talk about this in the future.
But fellow pre-orderers,
I never bet against the nerds and the hackers. Never bet against them.
That's exactly it, right?
I think what Zim means is like an official support, right?
I do. Yeah. But
for sure. Yeah, I don't think that.
IVVR for PSVR 1 was one of the worst experiences I think I had. Like it was on par with me spinning 300 times a minute rotating in VR chat at one particular Christmas because of some tracking bug. That was bad, but IVVR was with PSVR 2 trying to get that working on PC was particularly bad as well. Maybe other people had success with it, but I certainly did not. And I thought it was one of those awkward middle layer solutions that just didn't feel like it fit. Adam, how about you? How's your hype meter for PSVR 2 at the moment?
I kind of agree with Rowdy. Like, I want to see, it's a completely selfish reason that a lot of the titles that are out now, I think are good for, good solid basic titles for people maybe who haven't been in VR before. But I'm annoyed with myself because I want to say I want more exclusive titles, but I hate exclusive titles just from Rift days when I'm on Steam and I'm like, oh, this is only available on Rift. And I'm like, go F yourself. So now that I selfishly have getting a PlayStation VR 2, I want those exclusive titles, stuff that I can't play on just my Quest or on Steam. So right now, a lot of the games are like, oh, well, I haven't played this on Quest, so I guess I'll get it for PlayStation just to fill out that library. But I don't kind of like that. That attitude makes me a little uncomfortable. But I did buy it. But again, I always set my bar low for kind of everything. So you will always be pleasantly surprised versus if you do the other way and you are always super hyped about things, you're probably going to be disappointed about a lot of stuff. So just everything's awful. Surprise me.
Everything is awful. Everything is awful.
I don't mind exclusives. I really don't, because it usually means a sack of cash for the developers and the platform. And it normally forwards the whole train. Like the whole industry gets to take a step forward. I know exclusives suck
Timed
for someone who's
exclusives.
on the platform. Yeah, timed exclusives are a great option.
That's the
right?
best
And
one, I think.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true.
and a lot of exclusives are that. But there are things like, again, I mean, there's so many titles that I would beg to come to PSVR 2. I'll save those ideas for another podcast. But it's like, I have, because of the hype, not just the hype, because of the buzz, because of the amount of quality titles that we're getting, even the ones that are really a port or a rehash or a re-release with some additional features, I think it's enough of a sound base that when that 1 out of 10 gamer fronts the money and then shows their friends how good that experience is, that's going to be enough wind to carry the sales of this ship forward. Developers will get money, and then they'll be able to pipeline and plan. And so I think the next 2 to 3 years are going to look pretty sweet for PSVR 2, judging based upon developer friends and what we know is coming out already. Because if you compare to what we've had for every other VR headset launch, this looks like the strongest so far. I haven't seen a stronger lineup than this, is my personal opinion, even though there's re-releases in there, you know. So anyway, that's PSVR 2. Thanks all for your perspectives. Chat as well. Let us know towards the end of the podcast, you know, your thoughts. Will reflect there on a little bit about what you're thinking about this too. Let's move over to the Yang, the dark side of the podcast now, which is talking a little bit to Microsoft and their layoffs and a few changes to their investment in VR. Well, news broke through an SEC filing as of January 18th that Microsoft Corporation announced to its employees a series of actions that it's taking in response to macroeconomic conditions and changing customer priorities. So quoting Microsoft here, these actions include workforce reductions of approximately 10,000 employees by the end of the third fiscal quarter of 2023. So that's third quarter this year. Changes to our hardware portfolio and lease consolidation to create higher density across our workspaces. I just want to remind here of their recent partnering with Meta and the Quest Pro to bring Microsoft apps as well as security layers to the Meta platform. I thought that was a really interesting partnership between two heavyweights. And here we're just seeing a little bit of a big tidy up, to be honest, that Microsoft is doing. But we want to ask ourselves, what does this mean for VR and AR? What's the kind of direct impact? So first off, a team who you may not have heard of before, the Mixed Reality Toolkit Group, or MRTK, which was an open source mixed reality framework for Unity. It was owned by Microsoft. That's been shut down, and that's one of the first cuts that's been made public. However, in the VR and AR space, Microsoft has been lingering about with a few investments, right? You'll know HoloLens and other equipment like that, the mixed reality VR headsets that they came out with. And then if we think back to 2017, when they brought AltSpace back from the brink of financial troubles, unfortunately AltSpace is now being placed again gently back into an open grave. In a public statement, the company's Twitter account had said AltSpace VR will sunset the platform on March 10th, 2023. So I want to kind of dedicate this part of the podcast to honoring AltSpace, which was one of the very first, successful social VR hubs. Yes, it had robot avatars, which I never liked. I always thought humans were better than bots. And Sketchy Quiz, which yours truly hosted for a while there, really had some entertaining, pre-VR chat, social groups and things you could go to on a weekly basis. You could meet authors, you could have book meetups, all kinds of crazy stuff that was happening in there around a campfire and that. It also had the integrated ability, which no doubt caught Microsoft's eye, to put spreadsheets and documents up on walls in a virtual space. I used to actually meet with my team of mods for my stream, and we would talk about the future and what we could do and all this, and literally had, this team knows I love spreadsheets, but had spreadsheets and docs and stuff up in that virtual space, and people in a blend between virtual and desktop environments. And really the first ones to do that, AltSpace. They were really one of the first ones to blend it successfully. And no doubt, Microsoft wanted to buy in on that. So I'll just say the story's not over for Microsoft in respect of their pivot, right? They're really pivoting towards the working world in the same way that Meta is with the Quest Pro and their concept. So they're now kind of afoot in two different camps. And along with that partnership with Meta comes in the form of what's called Microsoft Mesh. Not Mush. I'll probably call it Mush because that's probably where they're going to end up. But Microsoft Mesh. You can learn more at mesh.com, but I'll give you a little blurb here just so you get an idea of what that's all about. Reminds me a little bit of telepresence technologies, and it's a bit like a Zoom call with digital avatars for focusing on work collaboration across devices. On the website, they talk about HoloLens 2, VR headsets, mobile phones, tablets, or PCs being able to join into this space as long as the app is Mesh enabled. So I think of Mesh as kind of like an API that apps can hook into. Again, kind of like a digital Zoom that takes us into that fourth layer, that additional dimension beyond what we currently do with Zoom calls. And one key feature that they talk about, which I think has well, I'll let you guys add an adjective to this name. It's called holoportation, which is projecting yourself as most lifelike, photorealistic as possible, taking yourself into mixed reality to interact as if you were there in person. The technology from the early thousands, which I spoke about, called telepresence, used to be where you had a high definition webcam, say in New York, and then you'd have another one in, I don't know, Madrid or Berlin or something, and you had half of a table and a giant screen. And so you'd see a boardroom of people, 8 people, and then another boardroom on the other side, and it would all be doing low latency work. So it's kind of that now brought to modern era, digitized, so you can be with your webcam, avatar, all that kind of stuff brought together. And it reminds me of a system that we saw from Cloudhead Games, where they were taking kind of Zoom and bringing it mixed into the work environment. So my big question for all of you is, do you think this kind of tech is going to stick? Is it going to normalize that we're going to have, avatars looking at each other in the working environment instead of human faces? What do you think?
I mean, as we're going more remote, I'm probably going to have an opposite perspective of Jose, I think. But on one hand, to me, it makes sense because there are a ton of remote tech companies now. I can't imagine any other type of company doing this, though, other than maybe, a tech company. But even then, it's there has to be ways to make this easier, because currently, if you want to first you have to get the headsets for people, then you have to teach people how to do the headsets, how to get in the program that you're meeting in, how to make an avatar, how to join the correct room, how to get everybody to, even just trying to corral people into VR chat, for God's sakes, is such a pain. So I think maybe I'm on the maybe fence. The onboarding needs to be way easier for people who aren't necessarily already VR enthusiasts. You know what I mean?
And that
and even then,
with you 100%, 100%, Adam. And that's exactly what's happening. Is that a lot of people see this as Microsoft's exit out of VR, where essentially they're actually focusing on the infrastructure side of VR. They are announcing a partnership with the leaders currently manufacturing and they're working in VR, and they're saying, look, we're going to focus on the infrastructure side of it all. We're working on protocols that will create seamless telepresence being brought into virtual spaces. And now that's what Mesh is all about, right? They're meshing these technologies. They're building a glorified phone network system for the metaverse. And that all comes down to the real investment, which is AI. These are all AI tools. They're going to be using AI or artificial intelligence in order to, grab your face capture and break it down to little fragments of data in order for you to quickly recreate that somewhere else. So that's really what it is. It's if anything, Microsoft is saying that VR will not go forward without AI, without these tools to exist.
The issue that I have a little bit with this form of meeting, and I have that with Zoom as well, is that I think we just have too many meetings. The amount of meetings is just insane, especially because Zoom made it so easy to have a meeting. You just send the Zoom link, hop, you're in a meeting. So I mean, if they're gonna go that route and make it as easy as possible for people to meet, then yeah, sure, it will work. Will it make people more productive? I don't think so.
No.
I think the majority of the Zoom meetings I have, the camera's off. Like there's not even
and that's the
presence
interesting
there.
part,
Like,
where when we discuss mesh, we discuss it as if we're talking about Skype or Zoom. It's really not. Mesh is a protocol. It's akin to Silverlight for Netflix. It was the underlying pipeline that allowed you to deliver quality videos in high resolution. So think the mesh pipeline is whatever Oculus's home environment might use in the future, or whatever VR.
I get that. But what I'm saying is that the ultimate goal of this is in order to have presence, right? Whether it's Oculus, whether it's whatever company it is. But the thing that I am a little bit on is like, do we need that? Like, in order to for the productivity of a company to increase, I wouldn't be one to say like, oh, you need this kind of thing. Sure, if you're a fully remote company and you need people on site to be speaking with each other or whatever reason to actually show stuff, or I don't know, like something like that. Yeah. But I think like 90% of the companies, then they don't need something like this at this point. Yeah. At this point.
And I'm with you there, Rowdy, because I think that. So maybe I'm the most negative on this concept of everybody. I do spend half of my week coordinating, working in various meetings, Zoom calls all over the place, right? Video on, video off, whatever. But I would say at this stage, and particularly coming out of the 2 years of lockdown and lots of video calls, like people are yearning for human connection more so. I've never felt, you guys know this about, if I look at other, I won't name podcasts who use avatars, I've never felt that at this moment, in our timeline, we're anywhere close to an avatar replacing a human face. I don't think we're anywhere close right now. Now, maybe 2 years from now, AI is going to be able to reconstruct my face, like what Jose is saying, right? In such a way that that'll be believable and or preferable. But right now, I don't understand why I'd want to be looking at my boss being a giant purple elephant or something. Like what? It just distracts from the work to be done, in my opinion. And this kind of goes to the same thought I have about the ski masks in Apple's headset is it looks too much like a distraction beyond what is it I'm trying to accomplish.
The reason why Zoom is so popular is because it's literally, you click a button. You don't even need to send link. You click on invite, you click on the person there. Bam, you're in the meeting.
And that's exactly what the mesh protocol is going to make. And that's the exciting part, because it goes to prove why Microsoft did this. Because Microsoft is saying exactly that. They're not making a platform. They're not making a chat system. They're building the protocols and the infrastructure so Zoom can now tap into this API pipeline, and whatever virtual platform exists can connect now to Zoom, and it's going to look seamless. They're pretty much agreeing with us all across.
But it's a future play.
Yeah, it's a future play.
This is absolutely. So this is the same kind of move we saw when back in the day Facebook bought Oculus. It's so funny that now we have to say that Meta bought Meta. What? It doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah.
But it's that kind of a play. Like, I see what they're trying to build, but it's actually quite similar from 5 years ago when they picked up AltSpace. They saw what they thought might pan out, and they put money in it as like an investment for the future, because if it pans out, it'll pan out and win them 10x what they put into it. And this is very, very similar. I just don't like what Rowdy's saying there. I'm not sure that human behavior is going to change enough that will end up in a position. I'd love to be very much. I'd be happy if within 5 or 10 years, right?
Wait till you start.
We're using headsets instead of desktops.
Once you start telling ChatGPT to run a meeting for you, and it just starts recreating your facial reconstruction, you're just watching yourself have a meeting over there.
Oh God, you're not having meetings with real people anymore.
Yeah,
it's just all AI. Your AI version of you.
That's what Mesh is all about. Microsoft is the biggest investor in OpenAI. They want the future of meetings to be handled without humans. They want your AI to talk to my AI, and that's the meeting. Your AI will debrief with me.
Like email then? It's like
yes. That's exactly what telepresence is going to evolve. It's the future of emails is meetings. Like what you're describing is meetings evolve or emails. It's like what you're going to write. You're going to tell your AI is like, these are my objectives. Go talk to, the team's AIs and make sure that everybody's aware of my objectives. come debrief with me.
Aren't we then going to like basically Neuralink and fast tracking? So for example, I can have one-to-ones and talk to Adam, Jose, and Rowdy independently because I'm able to multi-channel myself out through the internet to their brains, and we're able to just have more than one dialogue at once.
Singularity, baby. That's what futurism is all about.
Actually,
I know this stuff is like wrecking my head, but
actually,
it's exciting.
I've been an AI for the past 2 hours. Bye.
Let's go.
Wait, what do you mean bye? Don't go anywhere. We still need you. Yeah. Very good. Very good. Okay. So, where are we now? So yeah, I thought that looked like Cloudhead in terms of what they had released. I don't know if that ever got made into a product that people could buy into, but I know they were using it internally for their equivalent of Zoom calls. There's this now, heading towards the future. Keep an eye on Microsoft and Mesh. Microsoft still is a giant. If anyone thinks they're antiquated and don't have enough money in the bank, then you're quite a ways off from the truth of the matter. They are still a behemoth for sure, and I'm really keen as I was when it was announced. What is Meta and Microsoft going to make for our world? I don't know, but it's going to control a lot of what we do, I think, in the future. So keep an eye on this one. Yeah, au revoir to people who've unfortunately lost their jobs or will be losing their jobs in the next 6 months, with these layoffs. It's happening to a lot of companies at the moment because of where we are. A lot of tech companies in particular in the sites here, but find a new home. Make something new, maybe learn a new bit of tech. Get out to know how all this AI stuff is going to change our future in the next couple of years as well. So speeding you on your way there, I'd like to move into what we now like to call Jose Happy Hour, where we get to learn about the new stuff that's out and playable now or in the new future. This is the releases section, so
please don't do it
over
an
to you,
hour,
Jose.
All right, I was going to say, I don't know. I don't think I have enough content for an hour. So
He's quick. So.
Yeah, I usually go through them pretty fast, but I actually did get, as I said, I wasn't really playing VR this week, so I ended up watching a lot of content about the 3 titles that are upcoming that I really wanted to list up. So first one I have, and you guys are going to love this because we were talking about Unreal Tournament and classic FPSs earlier. First one I have is Rocket Jumper VR. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It is rocket jumping, but it's a platformer. You're in VR. You have a giant rocket launcher, and you're just getting from point A to point B, getting through these wild obstacle courses, just shooting rockets, just pretty much using momentum and physics to get across. It's super
that
rad.
model looks like a Redeemer. It really does.
Dude, it's so good. It's a PC game. I believe it's on Steam. I believe it releases on the 31st. It's $2. I believe it's about three pounds. But yeah, I'll definitely pick it up. It looks so good. I definitely am picking that one up. I actually want to reach out to them and be like, hey, can I try it out before you release it? But next one I got is Orbital Strike VR, another 31st release. That one looks like it to be about $20. Orbital Strike, the reason it stood out to me, it looks a lot like Star Fox. In fact, it opens up like Star Fox 64. The only difference is it's imagining getting into the Star Fox game, and then you see a horde, and then your shuttle slows down and goes like, oh, nah. And you get out the ship, and you start flying off the ship, and then you start attacking the other ships. So you're in the midst of a galactic like starfighter war, but you're outside of the ship. So you're telling the ships how to fight while you're also in the breaches of it fighting, which is pretty nuts. It's $20.
Kind of Homeland style?
Yeah. It's kind of like that, but you're in the thick of it. So you're outside of the ships too. So it's
weird. It's almost got Astrobot in there flying
Yes.
around. Like, what's going on? It's like I'm trying to figure this game out here.
Yeah, dude, it looks pretty good. It reminds me of that. It's like, what if you're playing Star Fox 64 and then like Fox McCloud just jumps off the ship and starts flying around in a jetpack and just starts shooting ships too alongside of it. So that looks pretty good. It looks $20 USD. It's about $22, 22 pounds actually. Sorry. And the next one I have is a PCVR Sweetheart. It's coming out on the Quest. It's actually one of my favorite PCVR games. It's called Barbaria. You guys probably heard of it. It's releasing on February 9th for the Quest platform. But yeah, it's a barbarian game. It's very. I'm actually. Let me see here. Sorry, I lost my notes.
That's
Like
okay.
a combination
Looks like
of
it's
Demio and strategy.
Yeah, it's a lot like
turret defense, or what is it?
Well, it's very asynchronous, right? Because imagine Demio, but you can also get into the actual platform and fight alongside of it. So it's a multiplayer game, so you're actually moving characters around. You're watching the other players, but you can also teleport into the platform and fight alongside of them. So your wave is fighting somebody else's wave, and if you see he's doing well with his wave, and you're like, oh nah, let me summon more monsters, but let me also spawn myself in that zone and give him a harder time. So it's a wave defender, but it has a lot of layers.
I'm trying to remember the name of the game. There was a Dean Hall game that pioneered this for VR.
Out of ammo?
Out of ammo. Thank you, Rowdy. I don't know why it is. I feel like we've gone past that point where my memory works anymore for old games. Like I always have to go back to a list now. It's so sad.
I'll never forget that game because of the shower with my dad simulator.
What?
Oh my gosh!
Excuse me.
You don't. I told you that story, right? About like that. I reached out to the developer to ask for like a key to try out the game. This was back when I was a small time YouTuber. And he replied to me, yeah, sure, here's a key. So I got a key. I was like super happy. I was like, oh, let me just try and play it. I activated on Steam, and instead of like out of ammo, it was, I think it was out of ammo. It was a shower with your dad simulator. And I was like, wait, what? Like, what is this? So I sent him an email back. It's like, look, I think something went wrong. And even though, even though I love VR, I don't think I'm going to try out this game of virtual reality, And he replied to me and he started laughing and he was like, haha, you're actually the first one to get back to me. I've got so many requests of people wanting to get this key in order to play it. And I see them all selling them on like G2A or like whatever it is. So there were like people reaching out to him, getting keys from him. And he would then he had like, I don't know, like 100 keys or 1,000 keys of Shower with Your Dad or something, which was like a dollar.
Genius.
Yeah, it was like a $1 game, and he just sent those.
That's amazing.
So and then he did send me the key for the actual game because he was like, you really made me laugh. Like, yeah.
Wow.
Oh wow, that's pretty smart, man.
Dude.
The shower with your dad, Dev, is like, yeah, income.
Why are there so many people buying my game? Like.
But no, I'm not joking. One of my mods bought me Shower with Your Dad and sent it to me as a joke. Like the amount of people who buy low-priced games with a funny title just to kind of have a laugh, even if they never get played. Like you could make it some dumb game just for that purpose. But that story is amazing, Rowdy. That's great. So Out of Ammo was very similar. It was it was a strategy game, but like you had waves of, what were they, zombies or soldiers coming at you, and you would be able to go down and like have a first person gun. Like at the time you didn't have anything. There were no games like that at all, and it was really neat the way they developed it. Its sequel didn't do very well, and then they went away from VR completely, but I still hope that RocketWorks comes back with a good title. But yes. I'm surprised, Jose, you keep bringing things in that I have no idea of and haven't seen or heard.
Man.
So.
Everybody, especially with the PSVR2 outcoming, it's very hard to like find really amp releases. So I'm definitely going for like really interesting stuff. But yeah, Barbaria VR, $20 USD, 22 pounds. Definitely check it out. It's pretty good.
Yeah, Bling Boy's going to be happy. He's
Bling
got stuff to play in the hospital bed.
Oh, God.
All right, chat. Well, thank you for that, Jose. And chat, if you've got anything to get off your chest, now is the time. Any questions or points of view, now is it while I read off the show times. So, FReality Crew streams every other Saturday on YouTube and Twitch. We are live and broadcasting from 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, and 6 p.m. in the UK. We've got an audio version that runs over on SoundCloud, Spotify, and iTunes, feeding audio-only versions to people who like to do dishes. We like having you with us live, but drop a comment if you're not able. Share your views and let us know what you thought of the show, or if you had your own thoughts about some of the topics that we discussed today. So let me know if there is anything in chat that we should cover before we skedoodle.
I will say that Great Tantrum is giving away our secrets here and asking, what if this whole podcast is AI and these people are actually in bed or out living life?
We've been discovered.
Banned. No, I'm just kidding.
I have a theory that maybe that's Elon Musk. Like maybe he sorted himself out. He's tapped in somewhere, just, living in a virtual paradise, and his fake self is just, wandering around as an AI.
It's enclosed in the red Ferrari. Did he like ship out a red Tesla into space?
Oh yeah, that one.
That's
the
where
guy
it is.
in the suit.
Yeah, that's where he is. His brain
That's
is
his
just
body.
mashed
That's his
up.
body. Jesus Christ.
Just in case of nuclear holocaust, he's just out there in outer space going, "Ha, screw you, suckers."
We are called FReality after all, so.
That's true.
But nobody knows what the F stands for.
Aha.
Aha.
Apparently, I went a little pixelated earlier on stream. Yeah, sorry about that. I, need to reconfigure my algorithm.
It's all right. It was hilarious. I didn't want to say anything because I wanted to see how long it would go on for, but it was quite funny.
It was hilarious because you were like blended in between two versions of yourself.
Who was it? Was it PD that said, Zim's gotta wash his face?
Yeah.
Or something
Breaking
like
out of the
that.
Matrix.
Oh God. Well, that was a good one. Well, thank you for the show. We're right there on the 2-hour mark. So hey, we got the show back in proper order again.
We did it.
February is thundering forward. The excitement is really intense for me, I gotta say. Can't wait for PSVR2. Really look forward to that. But apparently, this is the ball buster. Apparently, Amazon's going to take 7 days to ship the thing to me. So we'll see how that plays out. I hope that's just a placeholder. I hope it doesn't take that long. I don't want to wait until March. I can't wait until March. See you all in the comments and stuff, guys. Stay warm, adventurers. And from FReality, see you on the next episode.
Bye-bye.
Bye.